What's up, y'all? It's Simon Bro. How are you guys doing today? I'm gonna make it quite different from what I'm usually doing. I'm gonna review and analyze a movie which I loved, and it really had a huge impact on myself. It goes by the name of Minari. It is a Korean American movie produced by Lee Chung, I guess. I didn't know him before. Yeah, Lee Isaac Chung. Um, it got a prize at the Sundance Festival, I guess the jury and the public. So it is, of course, an independent movie, which I like. I'm very keen on independent cinema. And yeah, what else to say? Like, I'm just gonna do maybe a brief summary of it before going thoroughly into themes. It is about this first generation Korean migrant family, which moves to Arkansas, previously having lived in California, and they basically have like this house in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and they decide to grow their own Korean vegetables and fruits, and alongside they work in a chicken factory. And this whole story is very simple in its own way, even though there are like many underlying circumstances, themes, which are so interesting to analyze. But basically, that's the story of like this family and all those family issues and problems. And it's very beautiful because for me, it just tells a slice of life which we all can relate to. And I'm gonna go into it maybe a bit later, but like I felt for me it was very interesting because I felt like it told very beautifully what migrants do experience, but on the other hand, even though it's an Asian family and an Asian cast, basically everyone can relate to those topics which are taught in the movie, and the movie is not really showcasing the Asian culture, but if it is at least showing anything from the Asian culture, it's more about like in the perspective of the migrants, which is very, very pleasing. So yeah, let's maybe go into the themes because I don't want to go too much into the summary of it because I don't want to spoil anything. I want to make you feel like you want to watch the movie. So if you watch the movie, that's great because we're going to go into the themes, but if you haven't watched it, I don't want to spoil anything. So let's just go into the themes, which are like very interesting. For me, the major theme was I just took down some notes while watching it. For me, the main thing was speechlessness. It is so interesting because there are so many moments where people are not able to talk, or they come to a point where they just can't express what they feel and what they want to say, and it goes beyond the language barrier. I mean, there are two things about speechlessness in this movie. The first one is very practical, language barrier. Like, they are first generation migrants, so of course maybe their English level is not that good, even though the father, the mother, and the two kids, they have an English level, so they're able to communicate. But sometimes we can definitely imagine it might be difficult sometimes. But it is also about the grandmother who comes to the house at a certain point, and of course she's definitely not as good in English, or not at all. So it creates some kind of issues within the family, in a way that they sometimes struggle to communicate and interact with each other, especially in the beginning with the grandmother and grandchild, the son. So yeah, but for me, speechlessness was so much more than this. I think the main character of speechlessness in this movie was something that goes way beyond the language barrier. It was about some moments where they just sitting next to each other. And okay, let's take the example of the couple. For example, the father and the mother. They argue a lot and they have like very difficulties. But sometimes they just can't find a point where they able to communicate without shouting, which implies that then they just can't tell, and they just sitting, and you definitely feel like they want to say anything, they want to go further, and they want to engage conversation, but they're just nothing, they can't talk. And for me, it's very interesting because I'm an anthropology and sociology student, and it was observed that first generation migrants with post trauma, how to say, post trauma diseases, they have like this specific symptom of speechlessness where they just can't talk at all, and it is a feeling that they feel like there's something which stops them emotionally to be able to physically talk about what they want to say. And for me, it was really reflecting this in the movie. I mean, and even me, as the one who's watching the movie, I felt speechless. Not only because the movie was beautiful, but it was more about, with the cinematic decisions, like there are like many plans where you just contemplate. It was really about contemplation in this movie. Many landscapes, not so much dialogues, and you just feel speechless. And I mean, you feel the atmosphere in which they live, and for me it was very interesting. So for definitely speechlessness for me was the major theme of it. For the next theme for me it was failure. Like, they're first of all they came to California, and it was said we didn't know anything about how they live in California. I mean, we didn't see it, but we knew that it was like very hard times where they would have like almost no money and a very small house, which is difficult for both children and the parents. Because I mean, the parents don't wanna, like the parents don't like the circumstances, of course, but they don't want like they don't want their children to live like it also. So it was even more difficult for the parents, I guess. And failure is about job, it's failure about the relationship of the couple. Like, at the end of the movie they said, like, I think it's when they're in the hospital, and basically Jacob says to his wife, like, to remember when we got married in Korea, we decided to go to America to save each other. And we actually don't know what happened in Korea. Why was their times hard? Why they had to save each other? But the thing is that they moved to America to basically live the American dream, and this American dream is actually a lost American dream. And they didn't reach it, or at least how they wanted it to be, and which led to a failure, talking about money, talking about loss, but more than anything, talking about their relationship. They moved to America to live the American dream, both for practical reasons, but also when they say save each other, I mean, it's so deep. Like, they saved each other, implying that they would grow as a relationship. And then he said, and we just ended up fighting and arguing all the time. And for me, it was very deep. Failure in this movie is about expectations which are not reached, dreams which are dashed and divided. And yeah, by the way, the wife, for me, the one who played the most show-stopping role in the movie was the wife. I mean, her expressions are just so powerful and deep. I mean, and like the role she plays, it is so powerful, because I feel like, in the Asian culture we have the thing of like not showing one's emotions. Crying is not very well perceived, and you can definitely at many moments, and I think it already starts after 10 minutes when they first argue, that the wife, she wants to cry, and the images of her showing her face with tears in her eyes but not crying, for me was the most powerful moments of the whole movie. I'm not even kidding. The next theme I chose was also Christianity and the symbolism of it. I don't think that Christianity or religion played a major role in it, and I still quite don't get why it was in it, because it was more like a second thing. There's this guy, I think it's Paul, this crazy, weird guy. Every Sunday he be like walking with a cross to his house, I guess, which is definitely like, a, how to say, a, in relation with the Bible, when Jesus carried his cross on his ways to the hill. Many other things, you know, the names Jacob, and Isaac, you know, all those names. What else to say about Christianity? Wait, you know, they at some point they go to the church because the wife, she had no relation and no friends, and she's a believer. So Isaac decides to, or Jacob, sorry, Jacob says to, yeah, let's go to the church. Also other things. Yeah, the snakes. Also, you know, when the grandma she goes to this creek with the grandson, and they decide to, and David, oh my god, David, yeah, I forgot his name, when she goes with David to the creek and they see snakes, and she's like, you know, snakes are dangerous. In the context, you know, knowing that this movie has like a huge symbolism with Christianity, I couldn't help myself thinking that the snakes were in relation, you know, with the snakes in the Bible. So for me it was very interesting, but also on the other hand, I quite don't get where they wanted to, like, there was definitely many symbols related to Christianism in this movie, but I also quite don't get which role did it play in the movie, like, what did it bring? But I mean, if it's a, I do understand also why it was there, because if it's like a semi-biographical movie, maybe it was like they just wanted to paint a reality which they experienced themselves. So yeah, and you know, also related to David, you know, I felt maybe a last symbol was Christianism. I felt very interesting that the grandma at some point says to the mother, you know, David is much stronger than he looks, and for me it was about, you know, this small relation to David and Goliath in the Bible. Like, David, he has like a weak heart, and he has some of like heart disease, but he's way stronger. And for me it's also about a constant fight for him and a whole process of him healing through the movie. At first he is presented as someone ill, but then the grandma comes, and you know, there's this scene in the movie where he decides to run like fast, and for me the grandma played such a major role in David's whole process of, you know, growing up normally like a normal child. And yeah, that was just beautiful. You know, talking about that, it was also funny because, you know, when I think David injures himself with the shelf, and then it directly switches to Jacob throwing off a chicken box, and then the other woman says like, oh, you know, what does she say again? Yeah, if they're injured, we throw them away. And I found this quote very funny, you know, because it was like as if, because Jacob was obviously like, I think his leg was hurting, and it was funny because she was obviously talking about a chicken, but knowing what was said just previously, it was like, you know, in our society we always be like, whenever something is ill or whenever something is injured, we throw them away and we take something new. My phone is broke, I'm gonna take a new phone. Or like when someone gets old, oh okay, in the Western countries we put them, you know, in houses where they could live the end of their lives. And it was about being strong, and I felt it felt very interesting, because knowing that David just injured himself and Jacob was also like being hurt with his leg, it was about a danger, it was about staying strong in order not to be thrown away yourself. Okay, another theme also which was very present in this movie was definitely death. You know, the grandma's ex-husband died in the war. David is scared to die. The grandma is very ill in the end of the movie, so I think that was a very present role, but I don't have much to talk about it. It was just present in the movie, but I couldn't say very much about it, you know. Another thing that I found very interesting is racism. You know, at some point we go to the church and there are the two kids, which encounters other children, and they be like, "Why is your face so flat?" Or like, "Can I? What is this Asian word?" And then she'd be like, "Ching Chang Chong" and all those things, unfunny, racist jokes that children do, and also adults. What the hell? But it was not a very major theme. I mean, like, there was just this scene which for me was interesting because it definitely painted what, um, you know, what migrants, whether they be like first generation migrants, second generation migrants, or other situations, I don't know, mixed kids, adopted children, and all, you know, what all those people have to face when they're children. You know, it's very hard times. I've also experienced them. And it was very interesting because like it didn't go very deep into the racist topic. It was just showing what we non-white people are experiencing when we move to like America or Europe. Yeah, that was beautiful. One last thing maybe I want to talk about is two things. So maybe the most interesting. Yeah, let's talk about the two most interesting things I found in this movie. The first one was the growing relationship between the grandma and David. You know, at first, David doesn't like his grandma at all, and how to say? It's usually, you know, in every movie, it's always like, oh, you know, at first two people don't like each other, but then they start to know each other and they really like each other at the end. Yes, it was like that, but it was so much more than that at the same time. I wouldn't say it's different, you know, it's not different from other movies, but it's unique in the sense that, in the way it was showcased was beautiful. Like, they just become codependent. The grandma needs David and David needs the grandma. And you know, even though David was so mean to the grandma, she's never been, how to say, she's never been mad at him or anything. You know, and even when the father, he punishes the David, the grandma is like, why do you do that? He's so kind. And or when the mother, you know, she's talking with the grandmother and she said, you know, it could, at any moment David's heart could stop, and David hears that, and in the night she's like, I don't want to go to heaven yet, and I don't want to die. And the grandma, you know, she brings support to him and she's like, I would never let you die. And in the perspective of David's life, I feel like the grandma incarnated a freeing possibility of David of living his own life as he wants. That was beautiful. Let's talk maybe also about the sister. For me, she just played a second role. You know, the parents are not very present at house, and I feel like the sister, she must have had hard times because she's definitely more mature than she's supposed to be. She's the one who says, oh, David, don't do that, when she goes with the grandma. Of course, she doesn't have like such a deep relationship with the grandma as David has, but yeah. And maybe one last thing, I think the whole, you know, the whole moral of the movie, or the whole thing about the movie, maybe I'm gonna spoil now, I'm sorry, is about family loss in terms of the dad not choosing his family and putting the priority on his own American dream. You know, when they said like, we're gonna save each other to America, the woman hoped or wished it was about their relationship, but Jacob was in fact talking about his own American dream of growing vegetables, or I don't know. And it was very beautiful because, you know, in the end, when just everything's burning, it's quite ironical because he just got the work, but everything's burning, and I felt like it was such a beautiful end because it's about the whole process. When everything burns down, they quite fulfill uh, how to say, their expectations as husband and wife, because the wife, she decides to take the vegetables and Jacob decide not to take anything to save the relationship, and it kind of shows that they finally reached the point of the relationship they wanted, and it was really beautiful. Yeah, what else to say? I it was quite funny that the name was Minari, because I felt like it didn't have like any precise role in it, even though it finishes with this ending scene of, showing Minari. But it'd be very interesting in your own opinions on that if you've seen it. Just let me know down the comments if you've seen it, what did you think about it, and if you also thought about like the same themes I just showcased. So I'd be very interested in it. Just tell me what you think about it. I'm very excited to share all my opinions, and I will reply to all comments, because it's really a movie that I think we have a lot to talk about. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you like, just don't hesitate to put a like on the video and subscribe to my channel. I will do all the film reviews if I like it. Yeah, till then, stay safe and healthy, and see you soon. Bye.